Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with another episode of the Strafing Run. And today, an opinion on the Division beta, demo, hype accelerator, pre-order, inducer, I don't know. The game comes out on the 8th of March, so really how much of a beta could it be? I suppose they could tweak netcode and things like that in that amount of time. But anyways, this footage brought to you in part by the beta weekend. And some leftovers, really, featuring Anchor 654 and myself. If you don't know who she is, then you'll want to check out my Taking Back New York video. A cinematic let's play of sorts, showcasing our adventures in New York and within the Division. Some of you thought that it was a paid promotion or brand deal, something that was scripted. I can tell you right here and now, it was not. Ubisoft didn't give me any money, nor did they ask me to make it. They did give me the beta key. They might give me a press copy of the game when it releases. But other than that, it was something I wanted to do. I went to Anchor and said, hey, do you think it would be cool if I did this with our footage? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. She's been giving me some feedback, some tips and tricks. She knows a lot more about video editing than I do. I'm mostly just a self-taught editor, so there's a lot that I still need to learn. But I've always wanted to raise the production value here on the channel. I want to create cinematic moments out of regular gameplay footage. And that's what it was. It was just two people playing a game for the first time and recording TeamSpeak. Except it looked a lot cooler because it was edited together, you know? I mean, hours of our footage is just us exploring in walk mode, looking at textures and admiring the scenery. Because we love immersion, we love exploration. So I had to cut a lot of that out and show you perhaps the more exciting and interesting moments. That's what happens when you edit. And because of that, the feedback has so far been a bag of fantastic. You guys seem to really appreciate the time and effort that went into making that video. So there's a chance that you might see something more from Anchor and myself. So stay tuned. I don't want to ruin any of the surprises right now, plus I'm still kind of learning a few things, but I think you guys will really enjoy our future offerings. But for now, check her out. I've got some links in the description below. She is on Twitch and YouTube, and definitely worth a look. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to the critique. Tom Clancy's The Division by Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment. First of all, the Clancy name, does it mean anything anymore to anybody? You know, with all due respect, considering Tom Clancy, the author, has passed away a few years ago, not so much. He sold the rights to his name a few years before his death to Ubisoft, which meant that they could stamp it on anything that they considered somewhat tactical in order to drive sales. Clancy the man, I don't think had anything to do with the video games for a very, very long time. He founded the original Red Storm Entertainment, which I think, don't quote me on this, but I think they were a Virginia-based developer at the time when they made Rainbow Six 1, and then moved on into Rainbow Six 2 Rogue Spear and Ghost Recon 1. I know Rainbow Six Raven Shield, the third iteration of Rainbow, was by Ubisoft Montreal, or Red Storm Montreal, or something like that. And so really, I don't think he had too much to do with the development of games after a certain point, and I felt like after Raven Shield, things took a turn for the worse because they started putting their games on console. Console gamers just wanted something more action-packed, and we started getting these third-person kind of Hollywood action shooters instead of the tactical classics that were Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon. Also, the original Splinter Cells were pretty good too, but beyond that, we've been dealing with Clancy titles that aren't really living up to the author's books. And The Division is another game that I don't even think was a book, and it's just something that has the name on it. So really, first of all, take that out of the equation. The name doesn't matter, okay? What is The Division? In my opinion, The Division is an RPG with shooter mechanics, and not the other way around. And I think that's where all the confusion is coming from. Because we see New York, we see weapons and armor that we know of from reality, and we're confused by the extremely high time to kill. Look how long it's taking to drop these thugs wearing hoodies and baseball hats with an AK-47. It's ridiculous, right? Yes, from a shooter perspective, it is. It's a higher TTK than Battlefield, COD, Star Wars Battlefront even. It's through the roof ridiculous for a shooter. The thing is, though, is it's more of an RPG like Borderlands, Destiny. Maybe we can even draw comparisons to Diablo or perhaps even Mass Effect. Now, I say RPG role-playing game. I don't know how much role-playing is actually included in this title. In the beta, there weren't any decisions that needed to be made. There weren't any like dialogue choices from Mass Effect or anything like that. In fact, your characters don't even seem to have voiceover, which is a bit disappointing. I think good voiceover adds to the immersion factor, but you know, that wasn't present. I don't know if it'll be in the full game. And again, we didn't really see any choices that had to be made. Again, beta, maybe only 10-15% of the game, so we'll see what happens when it releases. But I think if you enjoy a game like Borderlands or Destiny, something like that, then you'll probably like this game. But if you were looking for an open world shooter, then you might be disappointed because it just isn't. I mean, you get in here, the enemies get more difficult, they get more hit points and armor, and there's items, there's a lot of loot, okay? If you love looting things in games, then you're really going to enjoy this game. You know, there's chests that you can find, enemies drop different types of loot, you can customize your weapons, you can get different pieces of armor and kit. The clothing and whatnot is just all cosmetic, so you can just change your appearance and maintain your stat items separately, which is actually really nice. I love the fact that there's tons of different pieces of clothing and gear that you can get to make yourself look different. It was a lot of fun. Anchor especially was quite the fan. She's going to need an in-game wardrobe for sure, considering all the kinds of clothing that is within this game. So at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, can you accept the modern day setting with the time to kill that you're seeing here? Because like I said, it just gets worse the higher level you get. And on top of that, you're seeing this time to kill when dealing with other players in PvP situations, which we'll see a little bit later. So if you're okay with it, if you can deal with the Borderlands Destiny style gameplay in a modern day scenario with weapons that we understand to be quite lethal in reality, then you might like the game. But if you absolutely cannot deal with it, then you may want to steer clear, because yes, it is kind of hard to wrap your head around at first. However, I think the reason that I'm able to enjoy it is because everything else is pretty dang good. The immersion factor is there. This version of New York is very detailed and highly explorable. There's a lot to look at. Anchor and I were walking through various apartments in the city and just different alleyways and constantly finding new things to intrigue us. And for us, immersion and explorability is just a huge part of video gaming. And despite the TTK and the other RPG mechanics, we couldn't help but be won over within the first few minutes of playing it. Now, that's not to say that the game is perfect. It's not. You know, it might be pretty bare bones and basic in some cases. We didn't get to experience a whole lot of story during the beta. There was like one chapter and then a few side missions. Pretty basic, nothing crazy. It'll be curious to see where it goes in the full game. Hopefully it gets a lot better, more intense. But, you know, right now, it could just end up being a open world exploration, shoot 'em up, loot 'em up game. And, you know, that might be okay for some people, but not so much for others. Again, time will tell, which is why it's never a bad idea to wait. And the pre-order benefits right now, it's like some additional clothing and stuff like that. Nothing crazy, nothing that I think you would really miss if you didn't get. So, yeah, you know, err on the side of caution. Don't pre-order, wait, and see how things go. The Dark Zone, New York's den of evil. This is where you go if you want the best of the best loot and perhaps wish to engage in player versus player combat. It is a quarantined area of New York. You do not have to participate in it. I don't think that there's any story elements here or anything that would force you to come here. Maybe there is. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on anything. But for the most part, this just seemed to be the more PvP-centric environment within the title. Now, you'll notice these yellow hazardous material packs on our back hanging from the backpacks. That's loot, because in the Dark Zone, instead of loot dropping and acquiring it immediately, you have to extract it. So you get it, you go to an extraction point, shoot a flare up into the sky, calling in a chopper. You wait for it, it's about a minute, I think. Comes in, drops a chain or a rope down. You attach your hazmat pack to it. It extracts and then brings the loot back to your PvE home base. Applies it to your stash. You go get it later and have fun. Sounds easy enough, right? Wrong. Because you're on the internet. And I think on the PC, you might be playing with 24 to 30 something players per Dark Zone server. They're going to want to kill you for that loot. Especially if they think you have cosmetic items on you. That appears to be the thing that people want the most, silly enough as it may sound. Everybody starts out as a non-hostile, friendly agent. When you engage them, you turn rogue. Well, it's not immediate. It seems to be based on a damage percentage, which I think is something like 15 to 20%, which is ridiculously high if you ask me. In my opinion, if you engage a friendly player and you strike them, you actually make contact, then sorry, but you're rogue. Deal with it, learn to play. The thing is, what happens when you're rogue? Well, you get labeled, okay? You have a skull above your head, your name or your health bar turns red, and you get marked on the radar, top left-hand corner of the screen. Now you can see there in the distance, beyond this row of cars, there's a bunch of rogues, and we are trying to engage them. You can see Anchor and myself joining a few other non-hostile agents and taking these guys down. There's also some enemy AI running around and kind of perhaps getting in the way. Sometimes it's best to just leave them to distract the rogues if that's what's going on, but otherwise you'll have to just get rid of them so as to not annoy you and your teammates. But one of the other problems is you can cool down. You really have to remember the person's name and say, okay, that person was rogue or that person killed me and looted my stuff. I'm going to remember them. The thing is, when they've cooled down, if you engage them, you then turn rogue. So if you want revenge, you have to risk going rogue or somehow get them to go rogue first. And so it's not perfect. In my opinion, if you go rogue, you should have to stay rogue until you exit the zone. I mean, maybe there's some other ways to do it, but I think that would be the best, because more often than not, they kill you, they run away, they cool down, then they go to a helicopter extraction point, and it's pretty much up to you whether you want to kill them or not. But then you go rogue, and then nobody else knows why you went rogue, and then everybody in the city's after you. So it gets really messy. The whole 20% to get rogue status thing is stupid. It's very sensitive at times, and well, here was another glitch too. They were able to just run out of bounds and I think get teleported to the front. They were getting overwhelmed by superior numbers here, and they just didn't want to deal with the consequences of being rogue. So yeah, that was lame. It's not perfect. It's cool. The Dark Zone is nerve-wracking and intense, and I like it. I like the idea of having to extract your loot. I think there needs to be more AI to deal with, and I think the rogue system in general needs to be tweaked. Now, some people are upset about being marked as rogue. They think, well, why should I get marked? I shouldn't be able to be seen on the radar. The story excuse is, you were part of the division, you disavowed the division, you're linked into their network, they know where you're at all times, they saw you, you're busted, they told everybody else. Rogue agent down. And there we took out some rogues. We're credited for it, and we're still maintaining friendly agent status. In my opinion, as far as the game is concerned, it's not realistic. If you go rogue, sorry, you got to deal with the consequences. I mean, I don't mind it as much, but I'm kind of biased because I'm not the kind of guy that looks to go rogue all the time. I'm not going to say that it never happened. When Anchor and I were first starting out, we didn't understand how the rogue system worked. And we went rogue quite a few times on accident because people kept baiting us into a firefight. So it needs work, but it's cool when it works. Anyways, visuals, aesthetics, sound, animations, all that jazz, things that I love. The game, in my opinion, is gorgeous. Does it look exactly like the E3 reveal? Maybe not, but I'm not sure what's different about that. Could it be shaders, lighting, something else? Is it pre-rendered? I have no idea, really, but this game still looks great, even if it doesn't look like the E3 reveal. And this is not a port. The devs said it's not a port, and I believe it because I've gone into the settings, and you can see all the graphical options. They've got resolution support up to 4K. I'm not sure about ultra-wide because I don't own a display that's capable of that aspect ratio. There's multi-monitor support. You can move and scale the UI to left and right displays and have the center clear if you want. There's plenty of mouse and keyboard binding options. There's color-changing keyboard support, for frack's sakes. It's crazy. SLI support in beta. And, I mean, if it is a port, then, well, it's a pretty darn good one. As far as I've seen, you can usually tell. And with this one, not so much. Because, let's face it, Ubisoft is known for delivering ports, especially when considering games like Assassin's Creed. But I don't think this is a Watch Dogs fiasco all over again. Might not look like the reveals, but in my opinion, as a picky gamer, it still looks fantastic. There was, however, a recent developer interview where a statement was made in regards to not pushing the PC version any further because it wouldn't have been fair to the consoles. If this is true, if this was actually said, then I find it to be absolutely ridiculous. Why would you develop around that? Is there any console gamers out there that would have been upset if the PC version was drastically superior to the console version? Somebody's $1,000+ machine runs this better than my $300 console? Shocking. I mean, I just hope that we haven't de-evolved to the point where people get upset about a game looking better on a different platform. So, strange that anybody would state such a thing, but I don't know why you would if it wasn't true either. Ubisoft has also chimed in to defend themselves, stating that the PC version is exactly what they want it to be, so on and so forth. The typical, PR defenses. Guys, all I can say is, from what I've seen, the game looks amazing. Animations are there. The finer details. You can tell that a lot of heart and soul was poured into this title. And if I have something to complain about, then it's definitely not related to the visuals. Just ask that crapping dog that we managed to startle on the streets of New York. Ladies and gentlemen, I had fun with it. So sue me. We'll have to see how the rest is. So I would wait. If you're skeptical, just wait. Don't pre-order, and I'll give you another opinion when the game launches. But with that said, make sure to stay tuned for more. Thank you so very much for joining me, and I will definitely see you on the next one.